Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault. Once again, I'm coming to you with another range report, and today's range report is definitely on a really cool rifle. In fact, this is the type of rifle that I like to review. It's a rifle chambered in an intermediate cartridge, 5.56. However, it's not an AR, and it's not an AK. It's something different. And I always find those to be very fascinating, because even though the 5.56 is the most prolific cartridge in the AR-15, and everyone owns an AR, and everyone knows the variants of the AR, it's really exciting to get to shoot something that's chambered in the same caliber, but uses a totally different operating mechanism. It has a totally different history and pedigree, and that's what this is. And today we're going to be taking a look at the SIG SG 550. Now this is a 20-inch barreled rifle chambered in 5.56, which essentially is the civilian version of the military rifle that Switzerland uses in their military. It's been in service since 1990, and these are actually kind of rare here in the US. Only a few places import them, and I think that just has to do with a lot of the importation laws here in the US and the exportation laws in Switzerland. I know it's just kind of a hassle for them to bring these in, so it's really cool to get a chance to shoot one of these and to handle one. I've only seen these in videos online, and mechanically, these are definitely different than AR-15s. They are kind of a blend between an AR and an AK, but they really are their own beast. And being that this is a Swiss rifle, these things are known to be well-built and well-tuned machines. So I really can't wait to get this thing to the range and shoot it. But before we get to this thing to the range and I talk about the things that I like and don't like about this rifle, as always, I want to thank the people that make these videos possible. First and foremost is the owner of this amazing rifle. His name is Jack. In fact, he's the second person named Jack to lend guns to this channel, so I affectionately call him Jack number 2. So thank you so much, Jack, for giving me this opportunity. As always, I want to thank my Patreon supporters, because through their monthly donations and support, they help keep the lights on around here. And if you guys want to see all of these videos early, you could join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, and there's a link in the description below. And as always, I want to thank my primary sponsor for all of my range reports, the best grip company in the world and the best grip craftsman in the world, Mark from Brownworks. And if you're here watching a video on a fine Swiss-made firearm, well, I know you have a great taste in firearms, and you probably have a collectible 1911 Browning High Power CZ75 or Beretta 92, just to name a few. And these fine pistols take wood panel grips, and you want something special to customize your one-of-a-kind firearm. Well, the perfect company for you is Brownworks. Brownworks is a custom grip company making a wide variety of grips for a wide variety of firearms out of a wide variety of exotic woods and materials. Mark is an artist. He's a craftsman. He can put on things like custom logos, custom textures, custom engravings. He makes his own laminate woods, and he can even apply exotic materials like snakeskin and alligator skins to your grips to make them one of a kind and unique. So if you have a barbecue gun that you want to make even more special, Brownworks is the company for you. So I'm going to put a link in the comment section below, as well as a coupon code for 10% off your first order. I'm going to ask you guys to go over there and check out his website and all that he has to offer. And when you guys go over there to order your set of customized grips, please tell Mark the Texas Gun Vault sent you. All right, so once again, let's talk about what this rifle is and what we're going to be reviewing today. This is the SIG SG 550, which is the civilian version of the Swiss full-length military rifle, otherwise known as the Stgw 90. It has been in service since 1990, even though the contract was awarded in the 1980s. There's a number of different variants of this rifle, like the 551, which is a carbine. This has a 20.8-inch barrel chambered in 5.56. This particular example is in Arctic white. It uses diopter sights, so if you're a big fan of HK style sights, you will definitely like the iron sights that come on this rifle. And like an AK-47, we use the rock and lock method. So that's definitely a departure from many other NATO style guns like the AR-15 or M16 or SIG Spear and the like. This is definitely AK inspired. So as I mentioned, it's kind of different than an AR, kind of different than an AK. It uses a long stroke piston system. So, as always, I like to talk about the things that I like and don't like, and I always want to start with the positive first. And the thing I love about this rifle, I've already told you about. It's not an AR, and it's not an AK. It's its own thing. You know, the firearms world is dominated pretty much by those two firearms types, and sometimes it just gets a little bit boring, and it's nice to see something else. It just adds a little bit of variety, and variety is the spice of life. So from a collector's point of view, I think this thing is absolutely awesome. And I love the fact this is Swiss made, because we don't really get a lot of Swiss firearms here in the US. And the original SIG stuff is highly collectible, highly sought after, and it's known to be well engineered. I mean, think about all the things that come out of Switzerland, like watches that are known to be finely machined pieces of art, and that's essentially what Swiss firearms are like. B&T and the Swiss SIGs all have that stellar reputation. I've already mentioned I'm a big fan of the iron sights on this gun. After all, we do have those diopter sights, so if you're a fan of HK style sights, you're going to love this. We can adjust them for various distances, and you do have some adjustments on the top, so they're actually easier than many of the other HK sights. We have that ghost ring in the front with a pillar. That's really nice. Holding it here on the workbench, I can tell you I'm really surprised by how light this is. Now, this gun doesn't really have a lot of polymer on it. We do have a nice side folding stock, and we have a polymer handguard, but the rest of the rifle is going to be steel and aluminum. And actually, for a 20-inch barreled rifle, it's pretty darn light. And I do like that a lot, because sometimes when you get into the full-length battle rifles, they just get a little bit heavy, and definitely get a little bit front heavy. And I don't really feel that's what this rifle is. It does feel like it is well balanced. But I have talked about how this is a little bit of a departure from the AKs and the ARs, but I do like the manual of arms of this gun, because everything's like an AR, so everything's in a very familiar place. You have your safety selector switch, you have some takedown pins, you do have a bolt catch or bolt release. However, the magazine release is obviously in a different spot, because we do have it as a paddle under here. But when it comes to the safety selector switch, that's all pretty much the same as an AR. So if you're familiar with that type of firearm, you'll be able to shoot this and handle this pretty well. I think it will be very familiar to you. But now let's talk about a few things about this gun that I don't like. And the first thing I don't like, and I kind of realized this the moment I was able to hold it, is the bipod. Now, I'm not really a big fan of having these bipods in the handguards themselves, but this bipod seems a little bit on the flimsy side. It's made of what I think is polymer. It's definitely a little bit bendy, and it's not very sturdy. Now, it could be that way on purpose, but I find that this bipod is just a little bit cheap and chintzy. Of course, it's going to add some weight to the end of the handguard, and when it is folded, I kind of feel like it gets in the way, because it does move a little bit on that handguard, and I would just like an option to have that removed. I don't think this rifle necessarily needs it. And of course, because of the age of this rifle, you don't have a handguard with all of the different rail systems where you can just attach a quick bipod to this. This one is just built in. Now, getting back to this stock that I talked about, which is folding, but it doesn't have any other adjustments. So I actually find this to be a little bit too short for me. The length of pull is just simply too short, and I would like something just a little bit longer for my body size. I can definitely shoot this just fine, but a big advantage to many other guns like the M16 or the AR-15 is you do have all those different stock options with different lengths of pull, so that you could adjust it to you and your body. And the last thing about this rifle that I'm not really a big fan of is the fact that it's a side charger on the right side, just like an AK. Now, I know the AK guys are going to absolutely love this, but I'll tell you, when it comes to side charging guns, I like it to be on the left-hand side. I like to keep my hand on the grip. Now, some people will say you can charge this like an AK and reach over, but to me, this is just not quick and easy. Yes, I know guys that shoot AKs can do that really, really fast, but anybody has to admit it's not the most efficient way to charge the weapon. It's really nice like an HK if you have the charging handle out here like you do on an HK 91 or 93, or on a B&T, it's going to be back here. You use your non-shooting hand and you can manipulate that bolt. Here you have to come across the rifle, you have to take your rifle off target. I'm just not a big fan of that, and it's one of the complaints I've always had with AKs in general. And I've talked about the history of that, but people have disagreed with me. Of course, it comes from the concept of soldiers in the Russian army having to be trained on the AK from using bolt action rifles, and of course the bolts were on the right side. But that's one of the reasons why I just don't like right charging firearms. For me, it's just not an efficient way. It's slow and just gets in the way. But always, I want to give you guys some data on this trigger. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust the camera before we get this thing to the range, and I want to see what this trigger pulls at. So I'm going to get out the lineman trigger pull weight gauge, see how light or heavy this trigger is, and then we'll get to the range and see if I discover anything about this rifle that I like or don't like after putting some rounds through it. So let me go ahead and adjust the camera, and let's see what this trigger is all about. So as I told you, this trigger on this SG 550 is pretty good. So let me go ahead and show you this on camera. Let me go ahead and drop the magazine, ensure there's no ammunition in it, set it aside, turn the gun over, and of course visually inspect the chamber, ensure the gun is empty. It looks like we are good. So let me go ahead and show you this trigger pull. We do have the trigger here, which will rest up against a little plunger, and that gives you a nice feeling of a wall. It's not really that much of a take up. The trigger might be a little bit on the heavy side, but it is smooth. And that's the pull. And then here is the reset. Kind of short, tactile, and audible, and then you're right back there at that wall. It's definitely a heavier trigger pull, but it does seem smooth and nice. So let me go ahead and get out the lineman trigger pull weight gauge, and let's actually measure what this trigger is. Let me go ahead and clear the averages, and then let's see how heavy or light this trigger is. So for our first pull, 8 pounds, 3.4 ounces. I told you it's a little bit heavier. £8, 0.1 ounces. £8, 7.4 ounces. £8, 10 ounces. And finally, we have £8, 6.8 ounces, which gives us an average of 8 pounds, 5.5 ounces. So definitely heavier than many other rifles that this gun would compete with, but I will say you will have a very smooth trigger on this, and it actually kind of feels a little bit lighter than this. It's definitely heavier, but it's not gritty and has a very nice take-up. So that's what this trigger looks like and what the weight is. So now let's go ahead and get this thing to the range. And as always, I like to set up the target at 10 yards first. So I'm going to put one magazine through this, see if I discover anything about this gun that I like or don't like that I couldn't figure out here on the workbench. Just make sure this gun functions and give you guys my first initial thoughts and impressions. So here we go. Let's go to the range and start having some fun with this awesome rifle. And after putting the first magazine through this, I have to say there's a few things about this gun that I discovered that I really like. First off, this gun recoils very smoothly. I'm very impressed with that. Very light, very smooth recoil. I actually expected it to recoil more because of the long stroke piston system. The other thing I noticed is that the gun isn't gassy at all. Even though it is a long stroke gas piston system, you don't feel or smell any gas in the back. Everything is vented up here at the gas block, and that also adds to a very pleasurable shooting experience. Now, even though when it comes to loading the magazines, loading the gun, and charging the gun, it's very much like an AK, this gun has a last round bolt hold open, and I absolutely love that. And that's something that I always thought the AK lacked. Now, I know there are certain magazines you can use in certain AKs to give you that, but this gun is designed with that last round bolt hold open, and that is a huge advantage, especially when it comes to the rock and lock system mags that this gun utilizes. All right, so now let's double the distance on this target. I want to put some more rounds down range, just see if the gun continues to function this well, check out its accuracy, and if I discover anything else about this gun that I like or don't like, I'll just report back to you. So here you go. Let's just put some more rounds down range and have some more fun with it. And as I was expecting, this gun is continuing to run great and feel great. The shootability of this gun is really, really nice. It feels great on your shoulder and great in your hands. Now, when it comes to the accuracy, even though right now I'm just at a very short indoor range and I was just shooting at about 20 yards or so, I was actually a little bit disappointed with the accuracy. But I don't think it's the gun itself that it's inaccurate. I actually think it is the sights. Now, the diopter sight has a setting for, I guess, what would be less than 100 yards, and it has this big opening in the back. All of the other settings have apertures, and I can show you that right there. But when it comes to the 100-yard opening, it's kind of wide, and I actually find that to not be very accurate whatsoever, even at this very short distance. So I'm probably going to use one of the apertures in the future portions of this range report because I just don't like this big opening in the back, and I don't find it to be very accurate. But now I want to see how accurate I can shoot it. I'm going to set the target as far as I can at this indoor range, and yes, I know, it's only 25 yards. And this gun can go way further than that. I totally get that. But this is a gun that I'm just reviewing from the perspective of an average gun guy and collector. And so at 25 yards, I am hoping that I'm going to get a very small and tight group with this rifle, as I would expect this rifle to shoot. So here we go, 25 yards, another magazine, and I'm going to bench rest this, and I am going to use this bipod. I want to see how useful it actually is. So here we go, 25 yards with the bipod, and let's see how I do. And I have to say the bipod works like it's supposed to. It still feels pretty flimsy, and I was pretty happy with that group. However, it was really low. So I do want to take this opportunity to see if I can adjust these sights and get that group up just a little bit. And as I said, I know this is at a very short distance, but I think I can adjust this sight and get it a little bit better towards the center of the target. So here we go. Let me adjust these sights and let me see if I can do another group a little bit better and a little bit closer to the center of this target. And these sights are super easy to adjust. So I can only imagine if you're out in the field and putting a lot of rounds down range, this is a great iron sight system and you could really dial this thing in. There's a lot of adjustments on it, and I really do think with a lot of time, you could really get this to be exceptionally accurate with all of the different apertures. It is a very nice system. I do like the diopter sight concept, and the adjustments on this are really easy to use. So I do really like this whole sighting system. Obviously, in the more modern time, you would want some type of rail system to maybe have a different optic or a scope. But if you like running iron sights, these are pretty darn good and very easy to adjust. So the next test I want to do is the quick magazine change test. Now normally when it comes to modern sporting rifles, I can do this pretty fast. However, this is using that rock and lock system like you see in AKs. And these magazines kind of fit in here a little bit tight, so that may slow me down. Plus, in order to get the gun charged again, I got to reach over the receiver and pull that charging handle back from the right side. So that's probably going to slow me down too. But probably guys that are used to shooting AKs could do this a little bit faster than me. But as an average gun guy that normally shoots ARs, I'm curious how fast I can do it. So here we go, the quick magazine change test, and let's just see if I flub it because I'm used to ARs and not AKs. And while that might not have been the fastest I've ever done it, that definitely wasn't the worst. I was kind of surprised by it. The gun definitely does want to be shot fast, but for me, being more of an AR guy, the rock and lock system and the right side charging slows me down just a little bit. But if you're an AK guy, you're probably going to excel at this and absolutely love the way this gun operates and reloads. So the last test I want to do is not really a test, it's just me wanting to have some fun with it, because I can tell this gun wants to be shot fast. So here we go. I'm going to load up the larger magazine completely, and I just want to do a quick mag dump on this. Just have some fun and see if this thing can stay on target. But it recoils really, really light, so I'm expecting it to do that. So here we go, the mag dump test, and then I'll give you guys my final thoughts. And man, is this thing a lot of fun to shoot. The gun definitely wants to be shot fast. The trigger is awesome. It's easy to keep on target because the gun is so light. The weight is equally distributed throughout. The recoil is very soft and the action is really smooth. So the shootability and the fun factor of this gun honestly is off the charts. This thing is simply awesome, and I can see why the Swiss military adopted it. So what are my final thoughts on the SIG SG 550, the civilian version of the Swiss military rifle with a 20-inch barrel chambered in 5.56? Well, I'm pretty darn impressed with this thing. It's definitely cool. It's definitely different. I like how it's a blend of other firearms. I definitely think, though, if you're used to shooting AKs, you're going to like this rifle a lot. If you're used to shooting ARs, you might find it has a few drawbacks, but it definitely is a blend between an HK, an AR-15, an AK-47, and I think it takes a lot of the best attributes of all of those rifles and blends it into one. I'm still not a big fan of this bipod, and I don't like the fact it charges from the right, but as I said, those are very small and minor things. I'm very impressed with this gun. I wish I shot it just a little bit better, but I'm pretty sure if I had more time with it and was able to spend days at the range, I could really dial in these diopter sights. This thing really is a very nice gun. The one thing I did notice, if you are a collector, that you definitely need to be careful of, and this is something these guns are known to do, is to actually damage the finish right here by the ejection port. Now, this was actually this gun's first shots ever. The owner of this rifle, Jack, said that I could take it to the range. It was unfired, and he was aware that this might happen. I've heard some people say you can put tape and other things. However, I have heard people say that actually can cause malfunctions depending if the tape goes into the receiver, because there's a little gap right here. But pretty much if you own one of these and shoot one of these, you're probably going to get some finish wear right here, and that's definitely what we get, which is typical of this rifle. So if you are a collector and you have one that is pristine and unfired, well, maybe you don't want to fire it, but if you like to enjoy these beautiful pieces of art and shoot them, that is just something that's going to come with the territory. So that might be a positive or a negative, or you might not care at all depending on how you view these firearms. So on my star system, how would I rate the SIG SG 550? Well, this is a great rifle. It is obviously well built. It is robust. It is just a great shooting rifle, but might not have been the most accurate for me, but most likely that's more me than it is the gun. So I'm going to give this 4.5 stars out of 5. Now, I know there's a few things about this gun that are very AK-ish, and those are the things that I don't like, but they're not bad. I love the AK, and I can tell that I love this gun. It just might not be my absolute favorite. I didn't like it as much as I thought that I would, because I thought I would come away on this range report thinking this is the greatest rifle ever, but I definitely think it's one of the nicest rifles I've ever shot, just not the greatest. But 4.5 stars for the SIG SG 550, something really cool. It's also really interesting to have a gun in white. I've never reviewed a gun in this color before, so that's definitely something a little bit different. So what do you guys think? Have you ever shot any of the SIG rifles before? The 550, the 551? What do you guys think of them? I know that many people think these things are mechanical works of art, and they're highly collectible and sought after here in the US. So I would love to know your thoughts on this rifle, and what do you think about my opinions on it? Did I get this review right, or did I get it wrong? Tell me in the comment section below. So, as always, thanks for watching. The civilian version of the So I hope that maybe one day I would get to shoot a gun like,